And I remember he asked me, "Oh, do you want to stay for the night?" And I just wanted to go to my mom's house. And so I went over to my mom's house. The next day we got the call, "Your dad's been shot." Oh my God. It was a nightmare.
On this episode of Shoutout, the Emmy Award winning filmmaker and visionary, Rudy Gold.
I guess it all started with my dad. He used to take me to the drive-in theater, talking to all my friends, "I'm going to be a filmmaker," and didn't even have a camera. "I'm going to be the next Spielberg, whatever." So I got myself one of these and I just started filming everything. It started off with that. I didn't even know how to edit. Anytime I really want something, I could feel it in the gut, and I almost like kind of vision it. And I got the Emmy. That's when things start becoming a little bit more serious, because I was always scared what the editor would say, what the producer would say, what the writer would say, and I was always trying to please everybody else but me. I'd always been looking for something. I don't know if it was because both my parents passed away when I was really young, because, that affects the mind. It's good to have mentors, but it's at the end of the day, you should always make your decisions based off of you, because all the answers are within. Everybody's on their own journey. Just trust yourself and just make sure that you're happy. That's it.
This whole show is all about diving into you and how you got started. And I have no idea how you got into the lane that you were in. Even when I met you, I knew you were into film and into movies and filmmaking and,
Yeah,
you know, photography and everything. So, where did it all start for you?
man, that's a good question. It's I guess it all started with my dad, who well, not even my biological father, but a father who I thought was my biological father. Uh, he used to take me to the drive-in theater, as a kid, and he passed away, when I was about 11. And when your parents die, you're on your own, right? I mean, that's when when who cares about you and who doesn't. So sometimes you're going to realize that your own family doesn't give a shit about you, you know and so I kind of had to learn that the hard way. But so I was 11. My dad passed away. He was actually shot by a stepmother of mine, because my parents got separated. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was during like Christmas Eve, around that time. And I remember he asked me, "Oh, do you want to stay for the night?" And I just wanted to go to my mom's house. And so I went over to my mom's house. The next day we got the call, "Your dad's been shot." Oh my God. It was a nightmare. So that happens. And then my mom gets cancer a few years later. She passes away. I'm 15. I'm on my own completely. So it's been a long journey, because I've been an idiot a lot of my life. You know what I mean? Been trying to keep it together, trying to like do the right thing with no guidance, dropping out of school, coming out, going back, dropping out, coming back, just this back and forth situation. And so I remember being about 20 something years old, and I was watching, do you know Bam Margera?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He did something called CKY. You know
Oh yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was watching CKY. I think it was CKY 2K. And I remember and I remember Bam Margera saying, like, I'm gonna be in the room for like the next 24 or like 42 hours straight editing. And at this time I was working at Verizon Wireless. I was just a sales rep there. I would go in with a tie, and I did that whole spiel. And I was watching CKY and I thought, damn, I could do that, you know? And I was like, I mean, I should do that. I could do it. I love movies. My dad took me to the movie theater when I was a kid. I'm like, why can't I do that? And so that's kind of where my journey began, around that age. I'm like, and before that, I had no prior experience to anything but just watching movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had no camera. I mean, no, nothing. So I'm pretty much self-taught to a certain degree. And then I went back to school later. And so that's kind of like where my journey began. And so I always talked a lot about, you know, talking to all my friends, I'm going to be a filmmaker, and didn't even have a camera. I'm going to be the next Spielberg, whatever. And a friend was like, well, you talk a lot about this. Why don't you have a camera? You should be filming all this. And so I got myself like one of these cameras. It's like a high 8. You remember the high 8? Oh, here it is. You remember this camera?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So
I remember that
yeah,
style. Yeah.
yeah, that was a Panasonic. And so I got myself one of these, and I just started filming everything like like CKY. It started off with that. I didn't even know how to edit. I don't even think I put those things together. But so that's kind of where the journey began. And just kind of like going back to school. I went to a junior college. I mean, I got kicked out of that school like 4 times. And yeah, I literally had, dude, it was bad, bro. It was really, I was not focused, and uh, I got kicked out 4 times. I just like lost scholarships. It was a mess. So I got through that. And during that time, I probably picked up some, like, I don't even know what kind of jobs I was doing. It was random. I've done every job in the book. Like, I've gone door to door. You want to buy this? I've
Yeah.
done it all. And I guess fast forward later, maybe 8 years later or 9 years later, I'm working at Cheesecake Factory. That's when things start becoming a little bit more serious. I get the Canon 5D Mark II, and
Oh
that
yeah.
changed my life.
During that time, were you in school or had you already graduated?
Well, I had got my first bachelor's degree from Cal State LA,
Okay.
and so that school was a joke for me. It still didn't click. I like PCC was very hard. I basically re-educated myself at Pasadena State College. And I'll tell you something that I don't tell many people. I could barely read and write and do math when I went back to school at like 20 something years old. So I had to re-educate myself. And it's interesting because I ended up being a tutor for math and English.
That's so cool, dude. I saw something that you won. Was this a student Emmy? What
That's
happened?
right. Yeah, I won a student Emmy. So Um, everybody knows Michael Bay, and I'm not sure if everybody knows the school Art Center College Design. It's where I actually got my second degree. It's a BFA, and there was a couple like directors that I kind of looked up to that are, they're getting up there. And I said, I want to, find out about these guys. I did some research on them, and I'm like, oh wow, they went to the school that Michael Bay went to, and I was like, I want to go there. I'm like, I could do it too.
Yeah.
So I applied and I got in the first time. I couldn't afford the school the first time. My credit was all screwed up. It was just a bad situation. I almost had a kid with an ex, and my life has always been chaotic, man. And everybody was pumping fear into my life. Like, what are you gonna do? The school's 20,000 every 3 months. I got no family, got no money. I wasn't even serving. I was probably on unemployment and on food stamps. So everybody's like, "What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" And I'm like, I don't know, But from the way everything sounds, it sounds like it's a scary move to make, which it kind of is. But um, fast forward a little bit, my ex-girlfriend ended up having a miscarriage, and she moved to Long Beach to go to nursing school. I stood at that place, and I found another like kind of dead end job where I was moving houses with criminals. You know what I mean? Like literally moving
Rudy,
houses.
your life is a movie, man.
Yeah, but
it's
it's crazy.
it's
It's
crazy.
crazy. Yeah. So, I learned a lot of things there, and that was a fun job, believe it or not. But it was just a means to an end. And, it's an interesting thing because I ended up moving out a lady, a financial aid lady from Art Center. And I think I saw her card. I said, "Oh, do you work at Art Center?" She was like, "I do. I'm the department head of the financial aid." And I said, "Oh, I got accepted there, and I don't have money, blah, blah, blah." She's like, "Here's my card. Let's stay in touch." And so that kind of reignited the idea of going back to Art Center. Remember, I had nothing, no more girlfriend, no, friends, no. It was just kind of like, I was in a weird place, like mentally. And so I reapplied. I emailed her. She's like, reapply, blah, blah, blah. Reapplied, and I got accepted again. And I'm like, wow, this is it. I said, I got to do it. I got a second job Uh, I was a home loan officer. Do you know what that is?
How do you
I
how do
couldn't,
you do this?
bro.
What I've never understood, dude, it just seems like whatever you focus yourself on
Yeah,
is you just have it.
yeah. I guess so. It's survival, bro. You know, I gotta
Yeah.
eat. I gotta pay the rent. And
Yeah.
I don't have nowhere to fall back on. So I have to take these little jobs at that time. And so I was at this, it's called Starving Students, the first job I had, or not the first job I had, the job that I was moving like homes for people.
Yeah.
The second job was basically I was calling people to refinance their homes, right? So that got me some commission, and then doing that, and I cleaned my credit score. I went from like 500 to like 750 in like 4 months, maybe 4 to 6
Damn.
months. Yeah. And I told them, hey, I need one more semester to like put everything on hold. So they allowed it. I got like a $15,000 loan from Bank of America. I got student grants, Pell grants, the whole nine. And then and then the next thing you know, I'm at fucking art center, like, whoa, this is crazy. This like I mean, when I mean crazy, it's like kids are spending $10,000 on a basic project. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah.
Remember, Michael Bay went there, so
Right.
and Michael Bay comes from money. You know, I got to see Michael Bay's first project that he did at Art Center. It's insane. The school's nuts. It was the best decision I made in my whole life. One of them. Then marry my wife, who I met there. You know?
Wow.
So before I went to Art Center, there's a guy that I really kind of looked up to from his work. You know, his name is Saman Kesh. He's a pretty pretty well established filmmaker. I would say now he is, but his work always inspired me. And and I remember Matt, he had got an Emmy, and I was like, I want to get an Emmy too. I literally manifested this Emmy before I even went to Art Center. I was manifesting it, and I could feel it in my gut. So anytime I really want something, I could feel it in the gut, you know, and I
Yeah.
almost like could kind of vision it. And I got the Emmy.
Okay, I want to talk about visualization and what you just tapped into right there, like manifesting, because that has come into a real focus in my life as well. And it's just, I think it's something, being visual storytellers like we are, being fascinated in that way, at some point, if you stay on this path, you're
Yeah.
going to come into the realization that that is the muscle you've been building your entire life, and it just
Mhm.
generates more momentum, and then it starts leading into your own beliefs and what you are actually creating, and how much time are you spending like really closing your eyes and visualizing that before it happens. And then the more you do that, the more you see return on that.
Yeah.
But you had mentioned that like your own spiritual beliefs have come into focus, and I'd like to spend some time there if you
Yeah.
wouldn't mind.
Yeah. No, no, no. Well, at the time, I didn't know what it was. You know, I was just kind of like, I don't know what I thought it was. I just thought it was like something everybody did, you know?
Yeah.
And at the time I was a Christian, you know, I was born and raised like Catholic Christian. And but it wasn't until recently that I got into like Hinduism, and that kind of allowed me to understand what the spiritual like journey has been. And if it wasn't for, I had a big depression that kind of led me. I'd always been looking for something, always been looking for something. I don't know if it was because both my parents passed away when I was really young, because that affects the mind. Imagine, and the nervous system. Imagine not having parents at a young age, and nobody really to fall back on.
Dude, I can't imagine at all.
It's crazy. I mean, I kind of realized this during my depression, because I was like, I went to art center like 30 something, and I always try to make older, like mentors, got men, older men. I always try to make them like, what's the word? I'm always trying to impress them, or, always like, kind of find a mentor in people. And if it wasn't for my depression and going into spirituality with like Hinduism and manifestation stuff, I would have never realized that you know this is all like my journey. And I should have, it's good to have mentors, but it's at the end of the day, you should always make your decisions based off of you because all the answers are within. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's why we have the third eye. I think, I don't know if I mentioned that to you. We have two to see out and then one to see in. And I didn't really know about that, but I didn't because, you know, if I hadn't, I knew about it in subconsciously because I was manifesting whatever I kind of wanted, right? With awards or women or whatever, and yeah, so this depression just kind of like took me over the edge. I had to get on medication. It was a whole deal, bro. Like I was pretty much suicidal, and this was my second depression.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I remember like you and I, it was just a few years after we had been working together, I started getting like side work doing like bartending at weddings
Mhm.
and stuff. And we did one together.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you had said something that was a gift to me at the time because I was starting to, and I think it's just something about this path is that it's so hard. And you kind of look at the odds and that can weigh on you. And you look at how other people are doing and all, it's like
Yeah.
all these things that you should not be doing. You kind of have to learn the hard way not
Hmm.
to do that. But you had said something, you were like, it could always be worse. And you had brought up this show Locked Up Abroad. And you were like,
Yeah.
I watch this show every once in a while. I'm like, oh man, it could be so much worse than what I have. And I started doing that. I was like, I was on the Rudy plan for a little bit. I'm like, I'd watch an episode of that. I'm like, I'm not locked up. I like, I have food, I have this, and it really,
Gratitude.
yeah, it started expanding my gratitude tremendously.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for you bringing that to my doorstep because that's kind of like that was like the small little like ball of snow going off the hill that like now it's like constantly every day looking at all
Yeah.
the things that I have going for me, and
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Gratitude is everything, dude. I mean, um, when I started, so when I got depressed, I was like completely like I was a nervous wreck, bro. Like it was so bad that like my gums got swollen. I
Wow.
got gastritis. It was like my health started deteriorating because it was my second depression. And each time it got worse and worse mentally. And yeah, I got a book, bro. It's all about, I just write everything that I'm grateful for every day. I
Yep.
did it for like 300 days. I just recently took a break on it and um I'm starting to see returns on it. I really am.
Years back, uh, I kind of fell into the exact same habit where I was like every day, every night before I go to bed, I'm
Right.
writing down the things I'm grateful for, things that went well that day. I have
Yeah.
to. I cling to it now because like I was there too,
Yeah.
where you know you reach a certain point where it's just too much. It's too much for you to handle, and you feel yourself kind of sinking down. It's like, well, you start asking really good questions when you hit rock bottom, like,
Yeah.
what can I do to turn this around?
Yeah.
Because the way it's going mentally, and that's the thing is that anybody could look at your outside circumstances and be like, it's not so bad, and that just makes it worse because you're like they can't see
Yeah.
where I'm at actually, physically, mentally, emotionally. Like I'm way down here and it's scaring me.
Yeah.
But those little things, man, I'm happy to hear that you got the journal too, because I'm doing that all the time too, brother.
Yeah.
um Kind of let's start diving into your creative process. Obviously you've had this enthusiasm and this drive for making things. you know, when did you really start understanding kind of your own voice or your own direction of what you wanted to do? Versus like looking up to like Michael Bay or like,
Right.
some of
Right.
your Philip Bloom inspirations, but
Yeah.
really finding what Rudy has to say.
Wow. I'll be honest with you, just recently, very recently, very recently, because I was always scared what the editor would say, what the producer would say, what the writer would say. And I was always trying to please everybody else but me,
Yeah.
So we started this production company, me and my wife. It's a music video uh production company. You follow me, I follow you. And
Yeah.
if it was if it wasn't for that production company, even though I went to Art Center, I won an Emmy, I won this award there. I didn't realize it until a few months ago that I really have to please myself before anybody else. So I mean, it's been a long journey. And I still catch myself trying to, not as much, but a little bit like, oh, and like sometimes I don't want to hurt the like the gaffers, like, oh, I think the lighting would be better here. And I got to trust myself and say, no, yes, you're a gaffer and that's your job, but trust me, these are my lights and I know where they go.
Right.
So that's kind of like, I just got to trust myself and remember to make myself happy first with the project.
Yeah, because when you do that, it shows and people connect with that because they're like, clearly this person had a focused vision for what they were doing. They were connecting with it. And that's what other people connect with.
Yeah. My main thing is actually always going to look at the location, making sure I see and know what I want. And then I start a treatment, and that's kind of where it heads. And then during the treatment, I kind of like, I meditate without closing my eyes. I just kind of like envision it, and I see, I'm like, all right, light should go here, light should go there. So when we're there, I'm telling everybody what to do. And if somebody's telling me what, like they should do it differently, I'm like, we got to stick to the script. You weren't there writing with me. I was. So, but if I think that they could make it better, I'll listen, I'll listen. But most of the time, the people that do it better than me, I have to pay them a lot more money. So you know what I mean? It's per project.
Yeah. Yeah. You're constantly feeling it out. I love hearing that. And it's like, several stories come to mind, people talking about their process. Ron Howard, he was talking about that, where he's like, you have to develop that skill of your own taste and always be open to suggestions and like never allow your ego to get in the way of like, oh no, that is a better idea. I hadn't ever thought of that, but always trusting, like you had mentioned, any decision that you're making, whether it be creative or just for your own life, no one has been on your journey, your specific journey, and you shouldn't just be outsourcing your intuition to just anybody. You gotta learn how to trust your own heart, your own vision, what you see.
That's the hardest part, right? Because you don't want to, because sometimes people are working defer and you're like, and you just don't want to hurt people's feelings. But at the end of the day, you just got to make sure you're happy. Because trust me, when you're editing the job, because I'm the one that's editing, I'm like, I should have listened to myself. Why did I let this guy veer me off a different way? So,
right.
Yeah.
So I always like to, in these interviews, kind of have a moment where you reflect back like 15 years. And what would you tell yourself now?
Wow.
Well, what advice would you give now to you 15 years ago or 20 years ago?
I would say trust yourself, and just kind of like do your thing, whether it's right or wrong. It's your journey. Nobody else can, everybody's on their own journey. Just trust yourself and just make sure that you're happy. That's it. And I would obviously say to yourself, focus on the ego, like understand the ego, understand what's the purpose of the ego, but I think, those two things, kind of just trust yourself and make sure your ego doesn't get too big.
Yeah. That's great advice, man. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Shout out to you, brother. It's good seeing you, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
Shout out to my bride. Shout out to Art Center. I don't know. Shout out to Jude. He's going to be on the podcast next.
Heck yeah, man. I got to get him on here.
Yeah. So
what kind of links, or, if you're going to direct people to your work, how are they going to be able to find you?
They can just find me on Cinema. My Instagram is Cinema Bandits, or at the Real Rudy Gold. I mostly use Cinema Bandits now.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much, man, for doing this. I really appreciate it, man.
Dude, I'm honored. Thank you for having me, brother.
Shout Out is an Ellering Stories production. For more episodes, visit elleringstories.com.